Mortal Kombat has been hiding secret fighters in its games for over 30 years, from green ninjas nobody was supposed to find, to characters that literally started as glitches, to ones made entirely out of blood. Today, I'm breaking down every single secret fight in the franchise and how they were discovered, starting with the one that invented the concept entirely. Reptile? In 1992, a green ninja showed up in an arcade fighting game and nobody knew he existed. No announcement from Midway, no press release, no character select screen slot, just a mysterious figure that appeared if you did exactly the right things, at exactly the right time, on exactly the right stage. Reptile wasn't just the first secret character in Mortal Kombat. He was the first secret character in fighting game history, period. Here's how it worked. You had to be fighting on the pit stage. A silhouette had to fly across the moon, which happened randomly. You had to win a double flawless victory without block. Then you had to perform a fatality. If you pulled all of that off, the game dragged you down to the bottom of the pit where a green palette swap of Scorpion was waiting to absolutely destroy you. And the reward for beating him? Nothing. Zero unlockable content. Zero bonus endings. Just bragging rights and the quiet satisfaction of knowing you'd done something most people didn't even believe was real. Because that's the thing. Before the internet, before data mining, before anyone could just Google how to find Reptile and MK1, this character spread entirely through whispers. Kids telling other kids at the arcade, magazine rumors with blurry screenshots. Half the people who heard about him thought it was a complete lie, like some playground myth about finding Mew under the truck, except Reptile was actually real. Back in 1992, he was just the green ninja, a palette swap with Scorpion's spear, and Sub-Zero's ice that shouldn't have existed but did. He wouldn't get his own unique moveset until later games gave him acid spit and his full reptilian identity. But what matters here isn't what Reptile became, it's what he started. One hidden character in one arcade cabinet accidentally created an entire tradition of secret fights that Midway would escalate and completely lose control of over the next 3 decades. And the very next one was already waiting in Mortal Kombat 2. Jade. Most secret characters in fighting games are built to be forgotten. A weird little bonus. A developer flex? Something you unlock once and never think about again. Jade was supposed to be exactly that. Turns out, no. In Mortal Kombat 2, Jade existed as a hidden opponent with one of the most punishing unlock conditions in arcade history. You had to pick Sonya Blade, win your match on the stage right before Goro's lair without taking a single hit of damage, and then, with zero warning, your next opponent would just be replaced. No fanfare, no special screen. 1 second you're fighting whoever was next in the ladder, and the next second there's a woman in a metallic green outfit trying to rearrange your skeleton, which is, not ideal when you've just burned all your focus on a flawless victory. Here's the thing, that green outfit wasn't random. Every character on the MK2 roster had a specific palette and visual identity, and Jade's metallic green clashed with all of them on purpose. She looked like she didn't belong, like she'd wandered in from a different, cooler game and was just visiting. Players noticed immediately, and Midway had literally zero plans for her beyond that one appearance. She was a one-off trick, a palette swap ninja, designed to eat a quarter from some kid at the arcade and then disappear into the code forever. But the response from players was so overwhelmingly positive that the developers basically had no choice. By the time Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 dropped later in 1995, Jade had been promoted to full roster status with her own moveset, her own storyline, and her own seat at the table. She went on to become Kitana's closest friend and protector in Outworld, a central figure across multiple timelines, and one of the most recognizable characters in the entire franchise. All because some developers threw together a green ninja as a throwaway gag, and the community said no, she's ours now. A disposable secret boss becoming a franchise pillar purely through fan enthusiasm is rare in any game, let alone a 1993 arcade fighter. But if you think Jade's hidden entrance was dramatic, wait until you hear about the guy who literally appears out of thin air. Most secret characters are fun. They're Easter eggs, developer in-jokes, little rewards for players who were curious enough to dig. Smoke is not that. Smoke is a horror story wearing a ninja costume. He showed up in Mortal Kombat 2 under conditions almost identical to Jade. Flawless victory, right place, right time, and suddenly you're fighting a gray palette swap ninja who throws smoke bombs. Cool, right? Another hidden fighter to brag about at the arcade, except the developers had something much darker planned for this one. Here's the thing, Smoke wasn't always a machine. He started as a human ninja, a member of the Lin Kuei clan alongside Sub-Zero. They were allies, friends even, and then the Lin Kuei decided that human warriors were inefficient and launched their Cyber Initiative, a program designed to strip their best fighters of their humanity and convert them into obedient cyborg assassins. Smoke didn't volunteer. Nobody asked him. He was captured, strapped down and hollowed out, his organs replaced with machinery, his mind overwritten with program, his entire identity erased and rebuilt to serve the people who destroyed him. He woke up as a weapon, which is, not ideal, but here's where it gets worse. He didn't just lose his body, he lost his will. For years, Smoke operated under direct mind control, fighting alongside the very clan that enslaved him. He had zero autonomy, zero awareness of what he'd lost. Just a machine following orders, occasionally flickering with fragments of the person he used to be. And the franchise never even gave him closure. His endings across different games contradict each other so aggressively that nobody actually knows what happened to him. In one timeline, he breaks free. In another, he stays a drone forever. In another, he gets reformatted entirely. The developers kept rewriting his fate like they couldn't decide whether to give him peace or keep torturing him. Every single game. A different answer to the same question, and none of them stick. He eventually became Noob Saibot's unwilling partner in MK3, basically trading one form of enslavement for another. A guy who had his humanity ripped away, shackled to a wraith who lost his own identity years early. Two broken weapons chained together. Speaking of Noob Saibot, his story might be even stranger than Smoke's, because his name alone hides one of fighting games' best-kept secrets. Noob Saibot. Most secret characters in Mortal Kombat are hidden tributes to the fans. Noob Saibot is a hidden tribute to the guys who made the game, and nobody figured it out for years. Here's the thing. Take Noob Saibot and spell it backwards. You get Tobias and Boone, as in John Tobias and Ed Boon, the two creators of the entire Mortal Kombat franchise. They literally put their own names into the game, reversed them, slapped them onto a pitch-black shadow ninja, and waited to see if anyone would notice. Nobody did. Casual players fought this guy for years without a single clue they were essentially punching the developers in the face. Ed Boon didn't publicly confirm the name reversal until interviews years after the fact, at which point the collective reaction was basically, oh no. But the name gag is only half the story, because underneath that fun little developer in-joke is one of the darkest character reveals in fighting game history. Noob Saibot first showed up in Mortal Kombat 2 in 1993, unlocked through the same flawless victory gauntlet that summoned Jade and Smoke. He was a completely blacked out ninja with teleportation and shadow-based attacks, which, for 1993 arcade hardware, was genuinely impressive. Players assumed he was just another palette swap boss. A cool fight, a weird name, move on. Turns out, no. Later games revealed that Noob Saibot was actually Bihan, the original Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat 1. Scorpion killed him. Then he got resurrected as a wraith, stripped of his humanity, and turned into a shadow assassin serving the Netherrealm. So the funny backwards name Easter egg character, he's Sub-Zero's dead older brother, twisted into a soulless revenant who would eventually try to murder his own sibling, which is, not ideal for family reunions. The community has never fully agreed on what happened next. Noob's arc got retconned and resurrected across multiple timelines, and depending on who you ask, that either deepened his tragedy into something genuinely compelling or turned him into narrative wallpaper that the writers kept recycling whenever they needed a convenient villain. MK9's portrayal was particularly divisive, with some fans arguing it reduced Bihan's fall from grace into a footnote. Either way, he remains the only fighting game character in history who started as a developer inside joke and ended up with one of the most genuinely heartbreaking backstories in the genre. That's range. But if you think a dead brother turned shadow wraith is strange, wait until you hear about the secret character who doesn't even have a consistent physical form. Chameleon. Every fighting game franchise has at least one character who got absolutely robbed. In Mortal Kombat, that character is Chameleon, and her story is genuinely one of the saddest in the entire series. Here's the setup. Mortal Kombat Trilogy dropped in 1996 as a massive console expansion of MK3, cramming in basically every fighter the series had produced up to that point. And tucked away in that bloated roster, accessible only through specific code inputs, was a character most people never even knew existed. Chameleon, a female Zataran, which makes her the only known female member of Reptile's entire reptilian species. Let that sink in, an entire alien race, and she's the sole female representative we've ever seen. Her abilities were exactly what you'd expect from someone sharing DNA with Reptile. Invisibility, color-changing camouflage, the whole chameleon package. But here's where it gets interesting. She wasn't just a palette swap thrown together in an afternoon. Chameleon had actual lore implications. The existence of a female Zataran opened up massive questions about the species, their culture, their near extinction, and what Shao Kahn's conquest of their realm actually destroyed. But here's the thing. After Trilogy, she basically vanished into the void. She did technically resurface. Chameleon popped up as a playable character in Mortal Kombat Armageddon, but only on the Wii version, not the main release, the Wii version. And then decades later, She showed up again in Mortal Kombat 1 as a cameo fighter, which is cool and all, but being a support character isn't exactly the triumphant return fans were hoping for. That's 3 appearances across nearly 30 years of the franchise, and 2 of them feel like afterthoughts, and that's the whole problem. Chameleon has genuinely compelling lore potential as literally the last female of a dying species, and the franchise has consistently treated her like a footnote. No expanded backstory, no real arc, no closure. She's basically the definition of unfinished business, a character with more story potential in her concept alone than some fighters got across 5 games. The community has never really let it go either. Fans have been requesting a proper return for decades, pointing out that her connection to Reptile and the Zaterran extinction could fuel an entire subplot. But so far, all they've gotten is cameo appearances and platform exclusives. Just a lone female reptilian ninja getting tossed scraps every 10 years, which is, not ideal. But if Chameleon's problem was getting sidelined and forgotten, wait until you hear about the character who was literally born from a software error, Ermac. This is genuinely one of the greatest origin stories in all of gaming, and it started with a glitch. Back in the early 90s, Mortal Kombat arcade cabinets had a diagnostic menu that tracked errors. One of the entries was labeled ERMACS, short for error macro, a debugging term, a piece of back-end code that had absolutely zero to do with gameplay, characters, or anything a player was ever supposed to see. But arcade cabinets malfunction, screens glitch. And sometimes, during those glitches, players would catch a glimpse of that term flashing on screen alongside what looked like a red-colored ninja palette swap. That's all it took. Within weeks, the rumor had spread to every arcade in America. There was a secret red ninja named Ermac hidden in Mortal Kombat, and if you performed the right inputs at exactly the right moment, you could fight him. Kids were swearing on their lives they'd seen him. Magazine tip lines were flooded with supposed unlock methods. Playground arguments erupted over whether Ermac was real or fake, and nobody could prove either side because the evidence was literally just a malfunctioning cabinet displaying code it wasn't supposed to show. Here's the thing, Ermac didn't exist. Not even a little bit. There was no red ninja hiding in the code. There was no secret fight. The entire character was a collective hallucination born from a diagnostic label and some busted hardware. But the developers at Midway saw what was happening and made one of the smartest decisions in franchise history. Instead of correcting the rumor, they leaned into it. When Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 hit arcades in 1995, Ermac was real, fully playable. Red ninja outfit, unique moveset, the whole thing. The fans literally willed a character into existence through sheer belief and stubbornness, and Midway rewarded them for it. Then the developers gave him lore that was genuinely brilliant. Ermac isn't a person. He's a fusion of thousands of dead warrior souls bound together by Shao Kahn's sorcery into a single body. He refers to himself as we instead of I throughout every appearance, because he isn't one consciousness. He's thousands, all crammed into one red ninja, all speaking simultaneously, which raises a question fans have argued about for 30 years. Is Ermac a collective? Are those souls aware of each other, fighting for control? Or is he something new entirely, a fractured singular mind that only thinks it's plural? The games keep it deliberately ambiguous, and honestly, that's the right call. A character born from a glitch probably shouldn't have a clean explanation. A coding error became a playground legend, became a real character, became a philosophical debate about the nature of consciousness. I don't know what to tell you. Sometimes, bugs are features, but if you think a glitch-born ninja is a weird origin story, the next character's problem was something entirely different, an identity crisis that spans the entire franchise timeline. Classic Sub-Zero. Here's a fun problem to have as a game developer. Your lore got so complicated that you literally had to add a second version of the same character just to explain things. That's classic Sub-Zero in a nutshell. So let me set the stage. By the time Mortal Kombat Trilogy dropped in 1996, the Sub-Zero situation was, to put it mildly, a mess. The original Sub-Zero, Bi-Han, had been killed off and resurrected as Noob Saibot. His younger brother took over the Sub-Zero name, so now you've got one guy who used to be Sub-Zero running around as an evil wraith, and another guy who is Sub-Zero but isn't the Sub-Zero most players grew up with. Casual players were completely lost. Wait, which one is the real one? Why is Sub-Zero fighting Sub-Zero? Is this a clone situation? Did someone hit copy-paste? The developer's solution was elegant in theory and chaotic in practice. They added classic Sub-Zero as a console-exclusive unlockable, a separate character entirely from the regular Sub-Zero on the roster. He represented Bi-Han before the whole dying and becoming an undead shadow ninja thing. You're literally playing the prequel version of Noob Saibot, the guy you fought as a terrifying wraith a few sections ago. Here he is, young, alive, and still doing ice moves like nothing happened, which is, not ideal for narrative coherence. To unlock him, you needed specific cheat codes on the console version. Arcade players couldn't access him at all. And here's the kicker. Once you actually got him, he played almost identically to regular Sub-Zero. Same moveset, slightly different color palette, minor animation tweaks. That's it. You went through all that effort to unlock what was essentially the same character wearing a different shade of blue. But the real comedy came from the player base. Casual fans had zero idea what was happening. Why are there two Sub-Zeros? Are they both playable? Which one do I pick? Does it matter? The competitive community largely shrugged and said no, it doesn't. He's functionally the same fighter. Meanwhile, lore enthusiasts were thrilled because they could finally play as Bi-Han in his original form, before the timeline chewed him up and spat him out as a vengeful ghost. Classic Sub-Zero never appeared again after Trilogy. He was a one-game fix to a narrative problem that probably shouldn't have existed in the first place, and then he vanished into the roster graveyard. The developers tried to solve a story issue with a gameplay band-aid, and honestly, it mostly just created more questions. But if you think a confusing palette swap is the strangest thing Mortal Kombat ever snuck into a roster, wait until you meet a character who is literally just exposed muscle tissue with legs. Meat. Here's a question you probably never thought needed asking. At what point does a game series about ripping people's spines out look at one of its own characters and go, okay, this might be too much? The answer is Mortal Kombat 4. The year is 1997. The franchise has just made the jump to 3D, and the developers decided to celebrate by creating the single most disgusting character in fighting game history. A skinless, flayed humanoid with every muscle fiber and bone structure rendered in loving, early polygonal detail. No skin, no clothes. Just a walking anatomy lesson that looks like it escaped from a med school dumpster. Meat, and yeah, that's his name. They called him Meat. I don't know what to tell you. Unlocking him wasn't simple either. You had to play through group mode and defeat every single character in the roster. So you had to earn the right to look at this thing, which feels like a punishment disguised as a reward. But hey, that's Mortal Kombat for you. Here's where it gets genuinely interesting though. Meat wasn't some grand artistic statement or carefully planned roster addition. He was basically the character model used underneath everyone else. The skinless body that fatalities and injuries were built on top of. The developers took that raw anatomy model and just made it playable. They looked at the thing that was never supposed to exist on its own and said, yeah, let him fight, which is either genius or insanity, and honestly it might be both. A game where you can freeze someone solid and shatter them into pieces, looked at a guy with no skin and said this crosses a line, but the line was never intentionally drawn. He's an accident of development that became a character, which somehow makes him even more unsettled. His backstory barely exists. What little official material there is describes him as an escaped experiment who ended up assisting Shinnok. But in 1997, you got zero context. Just a horrifying flesh puppet with exposed musculature staring back at you through a CRT monitor. Cool, that's also a thing that happened. Fanbase has never agreed on Meat. Some players see him as darkly comedic world building, the franchise accidentally winking at its own absurdity. Others consider him the absolute lowest point in Mortal Kombat character design. But here's the thing, both reactions feel completely valid. If you laughed, the dark comedy landed. If you recoiled, well, you were looking at a skinless man punching people. That's a normal response. Meat is one of the only characters in fighting game history where disgust is the experience, whether anyone planned it that way or not. He's a mirror, yeah. Mortal Kombat held him up and the player base split right down the middle, and neither answer was wrong. But if you think a skinless body horror accident is the weirdest thing hiding in this franchise, wait until you meet the character who's literally just a man on fire for no adequately explained reason. Blaze. Every secret character on this list so far has one thing in common, their footnotes. Brilliant, creepy, tragic footnotes, sure, but footnotes nonetheless. Hidden encounters you stumble into, share with your friends, and move on. Blaze is the one that refused to stay hidden. He first showed up as a playable hidden character in Mortal Kombat, Deadly Alliance, in 2002. And on the surface, he fits the secret character mold just fine. Beat every standard opponent, survived the gauntlet, and there he is. A towering fire elemental whose entire body is composed of animated flames that shift and reshape mid-combat. Every punch sent cascading embers across the screen. Every hit you landed on him looked like you were punching a campfire, which, you know, is generally not recommended. But here's the thing. Blaze wasn't just a cool visual spectacle sitting at the end of a ladder for bragging rights. He had a job. Canonically, he's an enforcer for the Elder Gods, a cosmic construct designed to maintain balance across the realms. That already separates him from literally every other entry on this list. Reptile was a palette swap with a sad backstory. Ermac was a debugging error that gained sentience. Meat was a skinless nightmare with zero narrative purpose. Blaze walked in with an actual resume and a direct line to the gods, and then he kept showing up. That's what makes Blaze genuinely unique in the franchise. He's the only secret character to receive real, sustained story development across multiple games. Deadly Alliance introduced him. Deception expanded on his lore, and then Armageddon made him the literal centerpiece of the entire plot. The final boss whose defeat would determine the fate of every single fighter in the Mortal Kombat universe. Every single one. The whole premise was that too many warriors had grown too powerful, and the Elder Gods created Blaze as the ultimate test. Whoever defeated him would gain godlike power and reshape reality. So a character who started as a hidden unlock ended up being the axis on which the entire franchise's timeline turned. That's not a secret character anymore. That's a main character with a really humble origin story. What's interesting is that nobody can fully agree on what Blaze actually is. Some fans read him as a cosmic weapon pointed at anyone who gets too strong. Others see him as a neutral arbiter, just doing his job, no malice involved. And the games support both readings depending on which storyline you follow. Deadly Alliance paints him one way. Armageddon paints him another. He's simultaneously the villain, the test, and the prize, which is a lot of narrative weight for a guy who's literally on fire all the time. But that ambiguity is exactly what gives Blaze staying power. He's not a joke. He's not a tragedy. He's a genuine question mark wrapped in flames. And the franchise is better for having him. Now, if you want the exact opposite of narrative weight and cosmic significance, let me introduce you to possibly the dumbest character Mortal Kombat has ever produced, M.O.K.A.P. So we just got done talking about a cosmic fire elemental designed by the Elder Gods to serve as an enforcer of universal balance, a being made of pure flame who exists outside the normal boundaries of mortal comprehension. Naturally, the next secret character is a motion capture actor named Chuck, who got magically kidnapped into a death tournament against his will. I don't know what to tell you. Mocap showed up as a secret character in Mortal Kombat. Deadly Alliance, unlockable through Conquest mode after you'd acquired all other characters, and he is exactly what he sounds like. A regular guy, a motion capture performer. The kind of person who puts on a lycra suit covered in ping pong balls so animators can map his movements onto digital characters. That's his whole thing. And somehow, through what the game vaguely describes as magical intervention, this man was ripped out of his recording studio and dropped into a tournament where people rip each other's spines out. Here's the thing, Mocap isn't just a joke in the way most fighting game comedy characters are jokes. He's not a goofy fighter with a wacky personality who still has superpowers. He is, canonically, a former martial arts teacher who happens to work in motion capture, and whose fighting knowledge does absolutely nothing to prepare him for Outworld. Knowing how to throw a kick is great. Knowing how to throw a kick at Scorpion is a different conversation entirely. His design reflects this perfect. While every other character has moves rooted in sorcery or interdimensional warfare, Mocap is just standing there in a full mocap suit covered in tracking dots. He's got fireball, flip kick, charge punch, technically sound, completely reasonable in a normal context, but he's executing them while dressed like a human green screen against a guy who can summon hellfire, which is, not ideal. But here's where it gets interesting. Mocap is deliberate fourth wall demolition. He represents the actual motion capture technology Midway used to animate the game's fighters. Every character you've been watching move throughout Deadly Alliance exists because someone like Mocap wore a suit and performed those actions in a studio. The developers took that invisible process and dragged it into the game itself. The fanbase has never agreed on what to make of him. One camp sees Mocap as brilliant, self-aware commentary, a studio confident enough to put the man behind the curtain directly into the roster. His full name is even Charles Golden, a tribute to Carlos Pacina, the real-life actor behind multiple classic MK characters. The other camp thinks he completely undermines a franchise built on gothic horror and mythological warfare. Both sides have a point. It's hard to take the stakes seriously when one of the combatants is just some dude named Chuck in a ping pong ball suit doing a flip kick. But honestly, after Ermac's existential nightmare and Meat's body horror and Blaze's cosmic responsibilities, there's something refreshing about a character whose entire canonical motivation is, please, "I would like to go home." He didn't ask for this. He is a hostage in a murder dimension, and his best defensive option is a competently executed martial arts move performed in full mocap gear while everyone else wields ancient magic. But if you think a motion capture actor being kidnapped into a fighting game is the weirdest origin story on this list, wait until you hear about the character who was literally created from a rumor. Scarlet. Scarlet is where the entire concept of a secret character falls apart. And honestly, that's exactly why she's the perfect way to end this. She showed up in Mortal Kombat 9 in 2011, a blood elemental created by Shao Kahn to serve as his personal spy and infiltrator. Her body is literally composed of animated blood held together through magical cohesion. So she's walking around looking like a person, but she's actually just a sentient puddle maintaining eye contact with you, which is, not ideal. But here's the thing about Scarlet. She didn't start as a fully original creation dreamed up in a design meeting. She started as a rumor. Back in the Mortal Kombat 2 era, players swore there was a hidden red female ninja lurking in the game's code, a palette swap secret character similar to how Ermac was rumored before he became real. That rumor floated around for years, never confirmed, never fully killed, and when the developers were building the DLC roster for MK9, they decided to make the legend real. Full moveset, blood-based projectiles, grapple attacks, the whole package. That makes her the first secret character in the franchise's history born from community mythology rather than pure developer-driven Easter egg philosophy. Reptile existed because Ed Boon and John Tobias hid him in an arcade cabinet and told nobody. Scarlet exists because years of player rumors willed her into being, and then you bought her for $4.99. And that's where the debate starts. Because she was paid DLC from day one. She was marketed. She had a price tag. Reptile required you to get a double flawless on the pit stage during a silhouette crossing the moon, finish with a fatality, never block the entire match, and even then, nobody was sure he was real. Scarlet required a credit card. Some fans argue she absolutely counts. She was born from secret character mythology, and her lore fits perfectly alongside Ermac and the other elemental constructs. Others say the moment you slap a $4.99 sticker on something and put it in a marketplace, it stops being a secret and starts being a product. Both sides have a point. I don't know what to tell you, but zoom out and look at what happened over 30 years. In 1992, a green ninja flickered onto a bridge in an arcade, and nobody knew if he was a glitch, a rumor, or a real character. Kids whispered about him at school. You had to physically stand in front of a cabinet, execute frame-perfect inputs, and pray. There was zero developer acknowledgement, zero marketing, zero storefront, just a mystery buried in code. By 2011, the secret character had a trailer, a product listing, and a decades-old fan rumor behind it. The thing that made Reptile magical, the not knowing, was gone, replaced by something else entirely. Not worse necessarily, just completely different. Scarlet earned her spot on the roster, but the way she got there tells you everything about how gaming culture shifted between Reptile's era and hers. The Arcade Whisper network became a digital marketplace. The hidden character became the requested character. The mystery became the transaction. And maybe that's fine. Maybe the concept of a secret was always going to evolve alongside the media. Or maybe something got lost along the way. Something small and strange and unrepeatable, buried in the glow of an arcade screen in 1992 that nobody will ever experience quite the same way again. Not all stories have a point. Sometimes they're just 30 years of developers hiding things in code and players finding new ways to pull them out. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.